Hello and welcome to Wales. It's a beautiful spring day today and I've headed over the border from Shropshire a little bit into Wales to the Rhaeadr waterfall, which is absolutely amazingly tall waterfall. One of the only, I think it's about two in the country that go through a natural arch halfway down. This is one of them. There's another one down in North Cornwall. So what I thought I'd do today while I'm having a look, I'm about to revisit a composition behind me that I looked at probably about 10 years ago when I took some close-ups of this basin that's just above the arch. And I wanted to come back and have a look with my my relatively new Sony lens. At the time I had a Canon 70 to 200mm lens on my Sony A7R1, and now I've obviously got an A7R4 and the Sony 100 to 400 lens, so I'll give you a little bit of an option to go in a bit closer on what I'm looking at as well. I think I had to use the crop sensor last time, whereas today I won't have to do that, so I'll be able to take kind of full frame images, and essentially if I needed to, if I wanted to, I could print those much bigger. But what I thought I'd do today is go through all the equipment I own. Everything I own photographically is currently on my back or in my hand here. I don't have any spare stuff at home. I'm unfortunately not in a position to kind of afford to have the luxury of lots and lots of gear. So I thought I'd go through my pack, what I've got, and really why I've been using it for the time I have. It's not just a financial reason, it's actually, I found a kind of a setup that I like, and I can't really see any reason why I'd move on from that. So as I go through today's episode, I will pick out random things from my rucksack and have a little chat about each of those things. For the moment though, I'm going to go and set up on this shot behind me and see if I can make a nice long exposure of the water pouring into that basin. Again, this is very steep ground here, so I'm going to be making the most of my tall tripod, one leg down the steep slope and so on. I've got to obviously watch my footing here because everything's pretty wet. There's a lot of trees that have fallen down since the last time I was here, and so there's a lot of disturbed ground as well. But I mean, the benefit of that is actually that it's opened up the view a bit more, so I've got a little bit more luxury of not trying to make my image work through branches of trees. A couple of trees have vanished and it's opened up this view really, really nicely into the basin. Okay, so I've had to wait a while. When we first arrived here, about an hour and a half ago, the sun was out into the valley here. Now, it is starting to cloud up a bit, but actually it was more a case of waiting for the sun to just drop behind the hill. The hill to my left is steep enough for the sun at this time of the year to still kind of go behind it, which has now meant that the waterfall's dropped into shadow, and with this very soft cloud above as well, it's bouncing light down really nicely. So I'm using basically my Sony A7R4 with the 100 to 400 lens. It's only at 135mm, so I'm not a particularly long end of the lens at all. If I go in close on the back there, that's pretty much what I've got in the camera at the moment. And I'm going to play around for a while with a few different compositions and try and make something a little bit abstract. What I do need to do, at the moment the exposure, it's ISO 100, I'm at f11 at the moment, and the exposure is a 30th of a second. I'd ideally like it to be a little bit longer than that, but as it is, a 30th is going to give me a kind of quite an effervescent look to the water. It's going to have some dynamic movement still, but also a sense of it being frozen. So I'm going to try some exposures like this, and I'm also going to put probably a 2-stop grad on the front, maybe stop down to f16 as well, and also change the ISO to 50 to give me a longer exposure here. I'm not going to worry about trying a polarizer on this. I think actually if I can get the exposure down to maybe a quarter or an eighth of a second, that's going to be enough. I want to create this sense of dynamic flow rather than full-on misty motion blur. Okay, so obviously first thing is my camera. So I've got basically one camera body and two lenses. So Sony A7R4, and I bought that second hand, and I bought the lens, the 24 to 105 f4 lens second hand, and I also bought this 100 to 400 lens second hand. And I've never had a problem buying second hand stuff. I think, you know, there's lots of reputable companies now you can go and actually, you know, you've got the assurance that there's warranties and so on involved as well. So I bought from MPB and various other shops. If I buy on eBay, I tend to buy from companies that I recognise. So if it's like Carmarthen Cameras or Mifsuds, places like that, I bought gear from all those people. I think my camera came from Mifsuds, and it only had something like 50 actuations, so it was an absolute bargain really. Someone had used it 50 times and decided they didn't want it. Why do I use Sony? I've used Sony for 10 years, and it's primarily because, having come from shooting transparency film, I tried out various different cameras over the years, and they always felt, digital cameras, and they always felt quite different from film. And I think the Sony sensors, when they brought those out maybe 10 or 11 years ago now, were the first time I'd taken a digital picture that felt like it was a natural step on or sideways step from shooting film. And of course, as the iterations of the cameras have improved, and the build quality has improved, and the sensor size has improved, I'm able to actually print images that I've made with this camera, 24 by 30 inch prints, and they look just as good as anything I photographed with my large format camera before I moved to digital. Right, okay, I turned around from where I was just shooting the waterfall, and we've got this beautiful beach woodland going up the hill here. There's lots and lots of mosses and so on, but I've noticed over here there's a couple of particularly mossy ones up the hill. There's a fallen tree as well, but hopefully if I can find a way up to it, I'll come back down first. I'm going to see if I can find the angle. The sight line from where I was, it looked absolutely fantastic. So if I can get on exactly the same sight line in a minute, what I'll have a look at is these two twisted, mossy tree trunks with a felled tree behind them. You can see them up the hill here actually. I think I just felt a spot of rain, so that's interesting. That's come in way earlier than they suggested. There's no sign of any cloud overhead. Right, let me go back on myself. I'm going to head up here and see if I can get an angle on those trees over there. Everything seems to have gone a little bit misty at the moment, which is rather nice, so I'll have a look. Okay, I'm pretty much up against them now. I'm on the same sight line. It's quite interesting really, the difference when you move much closer to something. Obviously there's a lot more separation. The compression that I got from further back made it look quite different to how it is, but the glow is quite sensational. If I'll have a little play with these for a minute, it'll probably end up being an upright shot again. Again, very steep ground, but yes, I'm pretty sure there's quite a nice upright image here. Look at the glow on those. Yeah, so we've talked about tripod in previous episodes, but basically my one and only tripod at the moment is this super tall Benro Mach 3 carbon fibre tripod that goes way above my head. But as I mentioned in the last episode from Stealth Stack, it's mainly so that I can get legs down the hill rather than have the camera above my head. It's more about making sure I can get a level with it. Here I needed the camera fairly high, so I was looking down because I didn't want too much sky. Obviously the higher the camera is pointing down, you're lessening the amount of brightness up above this composition. But it's one of the great reasons for having such a tall tripod. I can work on steep ground and have the camera right in front of my face, and that is married to a geared head. And the idea here is that I can obviously move things fairly quickly if necessary, but I haven't got to if I want, I haven't got to I had a ball head for a while and I really didn't get on with it at all. I much prefer to have this controller. Certainly as a large format photographer in the past, that fine tuning is really, really important to me. So the fine tuning of all these things really was the critical kind of element in the decision making about having geared heads. And I've used geared heads, started with the Manfrotto probably 20 years ago. I've never ever moved away from them. I've tried a few things, but I was never really happy with it. One other thing I was going to add was that I've got a small Rhaeadr plate on my Sony A7R4, and that is for the same reason really. It's just ease of use. If I want to go from, once the camera is set up in position, if I want to go to a landscape composition, then I know that that tripod head hasn't moved and the camera is exactly a level based on my previous kind of setup with the camera oriented whichever way around it was. So it's quite a nice quick switch back and forwards. Just using that L bracket. When I'm using the long lens, I've got the collar on the long lens, and obviously then I can just rotate the camera on the back of the lens. So I mount the lens onto the tripod and I don't need to worry about an L bracket for that particular shot. Well, in the end, the rain that started very gently while I was at Rhaeadr waterfall very, very quickly turned into something quite torrential. So I had to abandon my mission there. I certainly didn't want to be kind of getting everything out of my camera bag and showing you everything I've got in the bag while the rain was pouring down as hard as it was. I was absolutely drenched in no time at all. So here I am now in my back garden, and I thought I'd finish off a kind of a little review of what I carry with me whenever I go out. As I said before, this is everything I own photographically, and the tripod behind me. I've just for fun, I've actually put on the full-size center column. I've never used it. I'm 6'4", and just to give you an idea of measuring the camera on top of that, it's going to be at least 8.5 foot up in the air. So I can just about reach that point. I've never needed to use that. I have actually got, it comes with the tripod as well as a nice carry bag for it and various other bits and pieces that come with these Benro tripods, but the short column is what I always have, and that means I can get the camera really, really low to the ground. It's tall enough not to really need a column anyway, and I don't like using the center columns generally speaking because they're probably the least stable part of a tripod for me. So that's what I tend to use. That's all that's normally on my tripod. So yeah, I'll get that out of the way and then I'll show you what's actually in my bag. Okay, so remaining hardware first. Obviously you've seen my camera already. So Sony A7R4, blah blah blah, 100-400 lens, always permanently on my camera when it's in my bag is the 24-105. Drone work I do with this little tiny Mavic Mini 4. That's my go-to drone. Again, for space wise and for price wise, I haven't really got anything else. The controller and that together in the bag add probably just shy of a kilo to the weight, so I don't want to go any higher in weight than that particularly. I wouldn't mind a Mavic Air drone because I wouldn't mind having that second camera just to go in a little bit closer on some of the scenery in the background. Obviously a blower brush, normally in that slot just there is some batteries for the drone, and then basically the only other thing really hardware wise is my Kase filters set. So I've got a Kase filters K9 ring. I haven't done the magnetized versions or anything like that, just the K9. On here permanently, unfortunately due to a dropping accident, is the adapter ring for that system. I dropped this in Ludlow about 3 years ago, and my insurance company at the time wanted me to jump through so many loops to to get a quote for repairing this lens. All that happened really was that the filter rings at the front got bent. They're metal on the Sony lens, and they got bent, and that meant that this ring wouldn't go on, and that was quite frustrating for me because I tend to use filters a lot. So in the end I got a repair, like a tool that I could kind of grind out and stretch the dent back out again, and this is on now, and I'm reluctant to do anything with it because it's on there permanently. So that sits on there, and somewhere knocking around in my bag is the red Kase filters lens cap, which sits on there. And then the filters I use, there are only 3, and they sit in that little pouch at the front of my bag. So a 3-stop Reverse Grad for gradding very hot, bright horizon lines, especially on coastal scenery. Very rarely use that other than that. And then I've got 2 2-stop grads. That's a 2-stop medium grad, and that's a 2-stop hard grad. Now the medium grad I got because they don't do a 1-stop grad case, and I wanted something that kind of came in, I could feather into when I'm making images. I don't like to kind of grad. I don't like my gradding to be too obvious, so I will often use a kind of combination of 2 grads instead. And I wanted a 1 and a 2. They don't do a 1, so I used a 2 medium, which kind of is a 1 first, becoming a 2 further up the piece of glass. They're much. I used Lee filters for about 20 years, and I started to find that although they're much lighter because they're resin, I was getting all sorts of issues with kind of fogging and ghosting, and they mark much more easily as well. So I got through probably in 20 years with Lee, I probably got through maybe 20 filters. I've had these Kase ones now for maybe 5 years. No need to replace them yet, so I'm pretty happy with these. But I will be doing an episode very soon where I go out and I don't use filters at all. I'm just going to try that as an option. Doesn't mean I'm giving up on them, but I just want to kind of change my workflow a little bit, and there are occasions when filters really are the wrong thing to be using. So that's pretty much all the hardware. Cleaning cloths, I tend to have some kitchen roll, and I also have like a microfiber cleaning cloth, as well as the normal lens cloths which are in the top. And that's pretty much it for all of my gear. So as I mentioned before, I don't really change my gear very often. I've been using the Sonys for 10 years, maybe 11 years now. My filters I'm more than happy with. I've been using those for 5 years. I'm not really worried about kind of changing to the Armour system. I'm sure it's more convenient, but you know, using a traditional filter adapter and the ring on the front of the lens has been what I've done for 25 years now. So there's no, you know, I know the workflow. It doesn't get in the way of my photography, so I'm happy to carry on working with that as well. And that's kind of the key thing really, is that as long as my gear is doing what I want it to do and doesn't get in the way of you know, finding and creating decent images, then I'm more than happy to stick with it. I'm not really one to experiment and try new stuff out. If there's an upgrade to the Sony A7R5 at some point, if the pixel size gets bigger, maybe I might consider that. I'd love them maybe to consider going into a medium format, but I know they make sense for other people, so that might not be a thing. But the only thing I do change regularly, and that's really because I've never been entirely happy with bags, is the camera bags. I've yet to find a bag that really you know is perfect for what I want to do. So I've gone through countless different low pro bags over the years, f-stop bags. This is a Shimoda Action X70. I wanted the biggest bag they did in this particular range because my intention has always been to take it out on the hill and go wild camping. So it's got lots and lots of scope to expand. If I just quickly do this up and show you. The top is a roll top on it, so in theory I can pack this out. At the moment it's just got lots of hats and gloves, but this will actually go to a really good size. It's already, you know, so I could fold that down there and lock that back in, and that gives me probably the camera back section is down here, so there's at least 50% of the bag is going to be good for clothing and for bedding and for my tent and so on. Now what I don't like about these, they're quite hefty, they're quite heavy, but I think they're kind of over-engineered, and there's a whole load of things on here that I have no idea at all why they'd be on a camera bag. I don't know maybe, you know, drop a comment in the section below if you use half of the stuff that comes on this. It's a bit messy. It's a rear opening bag, so that's the bit that always goes on the ground. But on the shoulder pads, they're really nicely padded. It almost looks like these are designed to carry, you know, rounds of ammunition. Perhaps a couple of hand grenades or something hanging off of here. It's almost kind of got a military edge to it, which is something that is a bit strange for me. What I really want is just the ability to safely carry my camera bag. Good size pouches on the back. There's not really anything on the side of this bag that I can really safely and confidently strap a really big tripod to. So I've got to configure something on here that maybe I can get the tripod on the back, but I tend to carry that in my arms simply because there's no way of really attaching a tall tripod to this bag. That would be really, really useful. Ice axe loops would be great as well. There's a few things on here that you could kind of cobble together to make that work, but the reality is that these little tiny straps down here would work for ice axe loops. But there are things that I think are unnecessary, and obviously like that is always going to add a bit of weight to it, which is you know, just extra resistance on the hill. The bag itself is very well made, it's very strong, but I'm still kind of on the lookout for something that I will, you know, I'd like to think that I could use for the next 10-15 years. So this isn't quite it yet, but we shall see. There's one more thing I'll mention. I do all of my video footage with either the drone for the aerial stuff or with an iPhone, and for the last year and a bit I've been using a Zoom field recorder as a mic which is wired to a lavalier mic, and what a pain that was, because you've always got a wire. So today, for the very first time, I've got this little chap stuck on here and attached to my phone. If I just use my old phone here a minute, and I'll get a bit of footage here. There's my current phone with the receiver for this system on the side. What a revolution that is already. A revelation, sorry, that is already. But as you can see, I've got on there as well a DJI gimbal, the basic model 7S or something, and then that is attached to the craziest little flimsy little tripod that I found in my loft a few weeks ago. So this is really very much a toy tripod, but yeah, it's as soon as I can replace that, I will, because it scares the hell out of me when I'm out on uneven ground. The legs at the bottom are probably only 5mm, well, maybe a centimetre. But yeah, that's pretty much my entire system. That is currently filming, and if I go back around here, there we go. Well, thank you very much for watching. I'm sorry I couldn't bring you more footage from the Rhaeadr waterfall, but I actually do intend to be going back there very soon and making another episode to do with using graduated neutral density filters on a waterfall. So I shall probably head back to that location for that in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully that episode will come out maybe early April time. In the meantime, if you could please remember, like and subscribe my channel. It really does help me to grow and develop what I'm trying to achieve here online. So if you can do that, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. you.